Well, hello there, my live streamers. Hope you're out there enjoying this. We're going to get started here in just a moment. Let me go through a little bit of what I'm thinking for the day, and welcome to the live stream. So you'll note my new jazzy theme music for the lounge series. So I'm thinking about doing more of these live streams as a way of engaging audiences and doing more casual interactions. So that's going to be some of the fun. And exactly with that, yes, Tim, hi, thank you. That is exactly what I'm going for, is kind of this lighter weight versions of the show. I want to be able to explore other bits. So the way I'm thinking about the different engagements will work that way. Hi, Simon. Great to hear from you too. So that's exactly the idea, is these live streams will be available as live interactions, either just with me or also with guests and on site, potentially for events. But I wanted a more casual mechanism to engage with audience and try different things out. So as a reminder, if you're not already subscribing to the main products, the business of tech, either in its video form on YouTube or the daily podcast, please subscribe. That's the main repository of all things kind of Dave. And that's the way that I go to market generally. But I wanted to have this new way of engaging a little bit more and getting things going. So today I'm going to dive in on some Q&A. I've got some people watching, so please dive in with the questions, put them in the chat there, and I will be pulling them up and throwing them on screen. That will help us guide through the day. I'm going to let you in on any event planner's secret. You always have a few questions lined up. And the way that I've actually done that is I've actually worked with my Patreons. So if you're not a supporter of the show, please feel free. I use a pay what you want model for this. You pick the value of my content and you can support directly. Patreon supporters get access to videos early. They get content earlier than the general public. They get insights into what I'm working on, and they get opportunities to interact early. So for example, in this case, I have already solicited some questions from my Patreon supporters who said they were interested in getting some of their questions asked. And even if they weren't able to show up live, they were able to submit a couple of questions. So I've got a few good ones to get us started. Again, please dive in the comments section and just throw them in comments if you've got questions. But the first one I wanted to address from a Patreon was a question I've asked around how to assist MSPs can assist their clients with recession planning. Anybody who's been listening to me on the pod recently knows that I have a bit of an uneasy feeling about the way that we are looking to engage the market over the coming months and for 18 months. I'm looking saying, like, I see signs of trouble. Now, I think it's unusual in the way that it's going to be a little bit more spotty, and it may not be exactly like previous conditions. And I don't think it's going to be universally bad. We're not in a recession now. We know that from the numerical perspective, but people are feeling pressures, particularly around inflation. And what I'm starting to see is that there is incredible inconsistency across the market. So for example, if I go look at retail, they have overabundance of stock. They've over-ordered, and so now things are on sale. But on the services side, for example, airlines, hotels, travel, that's an area that has real problems delivering, and we still have some supply chain issues. Although that's also getting interesting. We have supply chain issues over on the chip side, predicted to go at least into 2023. I've seen predictions as far out as 2024. And I've also seen areas where things like GPUs are actually going down in price due to the crypto crash. It's inconsistent. So the question is, how do you assist clients with their recession planning? This is my thinking on the way that you do that. I think this is the opportunity to talk to the owners and actually learn a ton about their industry. It's obviously an owner. It's a tell me what you are thinking about in terms of economic conditions. What are the signs for you and for your industry, and particularly your geography, to understand what the impact is going to be? So say, for example, you're dealing with associations. I use associations as an example a lot because That's the one that I'm very familiar with from my own MSP. We used to do a lot of work there. I also know healthcare. So let's sort of do those two versions. So in associations, will be like, so talk to me about what you're seeing. Are you expecting there to be a drop in member revenues this year because people will be pulling back? Are you expecting a boost because of the midterms, from an association perspective, because it's often such around lobbying? Talk me through the dynamics that you're looking for. The good news is that they're going to give you that information because they're going to want their technology provider at some level to understand what they're struggling with. That'll give you information to understand the potential impact to them, but it will also start a potential investment opportunity to say, like, okay, what are the things we can do from a technology perspective to help on that? Are you worried about membership dropping? Well, can we do something on the electronic front to add additional member perks? Oftentimes we find that membership perks do retention in an association perspective. So are there ways we can give them things? Access to more information, online events, like these different kinds of pieces. And that'll open it up. The same would go with healthcare. Like, for example, so if I'm engaging someone on a healthcare perspective, I'll talk and say, like, talk to me what you're thinking about. Do you think this is going to be impacted? In healthcare, they may say, no, healthcare is a consistent thing, even during a recession. Or maybe they're in elective care and they're going to say, what we're worried about is this. And so you're going to, again, get into say, like, okay, well, what are the plans that we do around that? I'm not necessarily saying, like, I think that you're going to be able to completely navigate your customers through an entire recession planning. But I do think actually asking the questions about what the impact to them is where you're going to get that incredible value and insight and the stuff that you're able to help them with. So that's the area. That's where I would give some advice on the recession planning. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's the right questions to be asking them. And you'll be able to do a lot of listening, just probing questions about their industry, lots of listening, and that will guide you to where you're going. Tim, you've given me the sales objection on price. I'll laugh and go, like, say, like, I don't like competing on price ever. Like, I just sort of laugh and go, like, I look at this and say, like, position yourself as premium and you don't have this problem. If you're able to say, look, here's the 5 things that we do way better than the market. We don't even bother talking about price. This is what it is. I will use my own business right now in terms of it. For example, I sell ads. Everybody knows I sell ads, right? So I'm in a space where there is competitive pressure around pricing. And I don't even bother worrying about that. I just come out and say, this is my price. This is what I charge. This is the value that I deliver. And I'm confident enough in it that I just deal with that. And if you don't want to buy from me, that's okay. Not everyone is going to be my customer. And it's a self-screening process. I also will point out that I'm very open about pricing. I take it to the far extreme. It's on my website. You can completely get it. You can get access to all of that information directly. And so for me, you let people self-screen so it's not hidden. If your prices are very obvious or some sense of the way the engagement is going to cost and they get a sense already, I'm not dealing with it. That may be the way it does, but yeah, Tim, you're exactly right. I'm all around value prop because I just focus on that and I don't even bother competing on price. And that's the way that I just go to market. Obviously, I've worked for companies that are a little bit different on that. That's a different strategy if you're going sort of like for a volume play. But generally, in most of what I see here, we're in particular for solution providers, this is all value. You're not going for a volume play. Most solution providers of any size, if I go, oh, if you had 100 new ready to buy leads, are you ready to handle that? And the answer is no. I said, well, then you're not a volume game. Let's play the specialized one. So that's my taking on that one. All right, I want to take this one on too. This is from a Patreon. This one was around getting techs to embrace certification being difficult. And how do I land on this? There was some additional color around this question. It won't fit in a banner. And the idea here was the fact that, how do you get techs to embrace this? The answer is I don't think there's one answer. Again, listeners of the show know that I've been diving so much into employee benefits and the thinking around work from home and how people engage. The reason I'm doing that is first off, I find it fascinating. I'll freely admit I find it completely fascinating. But the other reason is that I see this whole space of what's going on with managing people, particularly as it relates to kind of remote work or any of the spaces around how work is done. And I think certification is sort of a very sub portion of that. I think there's no one answer. And for me, the real win is that in small companies, you've got the ability to do one-on-one planning. I think you're going to want to engage there. Now, I'll tell you, I have a bias, right? So I'm not actually super pro certification. Like I buy it. I believe it's a really good way to get in if you don't have kind of formal education and then experience. But if you've got experience, I'll take that every day, right? If somebody can actually do the thing and can prove it and can show it to me through a track record, I don't need them to be certified on that. You know, for example, I'll laugh and go, I don't have an MBA, right? Cool. I don't have that certification, but I can show you the businesses I have run or been involved with running, and I can show you the financial results of those. And I can tell you, here's all the bits that I did, and here's the market experience, right? So that's the way that it goes. And so for me, it's about that one-on-one relationship here. And I don't think you're going to have a single way to do it. But what I do think is you're going to be able to sit down with those employees and work out what's important to them. I just did on last night's pod, the pod that came out Thursday night. Because by the way, everyone, my pods drop at 5 p.m. Eastern. There's a very regimented time frame. So in the pod that just came out, I dug into a bunch of employee benefits data. And I looked at that there was a real disconnect between what they're offering and what employees think they have. In particular, they were focused on the fact that a lot of them wanted financial assistance, and they didn't actually think that they wanted it. And a lot of employers think they're offering it. In fact, have like financial planning services, and they have all of these other components to build off of, but the employees aren't recognizing it. And this is where I look and say, like, I think small agile organizations, most of the small MSPs, IT services companies that we talk to, have the ability to spend a lot of time on that. I get how hard that is, but I'll observe how hard it is to find people and how hard it is to retain them. And so I look and say, like, I think this is the space where you can spend a lot of time with them, customizing what their career development path is. By the way, I just did an interview with Ted White. And if you even cut the interview, he's a recruiter focusing on the MSP space. And most of all, what he's talking to new recruits about is not necessarily salary, but they're looking for the next step in their career. So I think the disconnect I'm seeing here is that we actually, as technical leaders and as organizational leaders, need to do a better job of leading our employees on their journey and helping them along the way and being far better leaders and mentors than we may be doing. Now, again, I'm broadly generalizing. You may be thinking you're doing enough of that, particularly from the questioner here. And I would just say, well, then you got to go further. You got to lead into that. And I actually am starting to come to the thought that I think this needs to be like super holistic. I think that this needs to be diving in and asking the life planning kind of questions. Like, what do you want out of life? When are you going to retire? What is the career trajectory? How do you get there? And you get beyond you get beyond that basic, like, where are you going to be in 5-year question? And you're going to have to really invest in your people. And I think that's where that's coming. Jason, I'm with you. Like, I think experience does trump certs every single day. That's me. I'm 100% bored. But by the way, I don't want to be dismissive of certs. I'll observe my brother actually is like master of certs. He takes all of the tests, like, for everything. He has the longest list of certification. And by the way, he knows a ton of stuff. He's a really great cybersecurity guy because he goes out there and he looks at the exams and he figures out what's required to do them, and he dives in really deep and he does it. And he's got a list of certs a mile long on top of his, engineering degree. So he's taken that path, and he's not wrong, right? This is a classic example of like, we're kind of both right. And so I'm not going to get too hung up on which way, and I'm going to advise people to do it their own way. Aaron, I think I'm building off of that. What's the best way to get techs to continue their technical knowledge? They don't want to spend their own time. Yeah, I get that, right? And to a certain degree, I'm going to observe here is that, you may need to be putting time in on this. Let me observe, Google is known for its programs around letting people spend a portion of corporate time on their own stuff. I think we may have to, we're oftentimes in the MSP space, we are so intensely focused on utilization and billable rate. It can be a real grind. It's a really like horrifically hard business, and we're making it harder. If we go to the, like, it's going to cost you, tens of thousands of dollars to replace that person, in a way, would you rather just spread that expense out and pay it out in small monthly recurring chunks and train them on the time and retain them? You're going to lose the money either way. From my perspective, it's like I actually, and I think back to my own MSP and I say like, yeah, I should have been way more generous on this front, because I think I would have ended up with better techs. And I think, and Jason sort of chimed in with the same thing, give your techs time during work. Yeah, I think that's the play. I think you do have to make that part of the benefit of working for you. All right, you've done that. They still don't seem to do it. Well, this is the other bit where I will observe sometimes you just have people that are what they are, and that's what they do, and that's who they are, and they're not necessarily going to be with you forever. That's okay. that is okay. I'm doing another pod. I'm guesting on someone else's pod, and they gave me one of the questions beforehand. Or gave me actually several questions beforehand. But one of them was like, "What's the greatest piece of advice you've ever been given?" And I'll share with you what my answer is going to be. It's execute business decisions. Make business decisions ruthlessly. Execute business decisions humanely. This is one of those bits where I'm just going to say, "Yep, that's who they are." They're not going to do any better than that. That is who they are. And then I'm going to manage them humanely. If they need to be managed out of my org and replaced, that's okay. That's a healthy thing for them. And I will do it over a long period of time. Or I will make it very clear that their career is limited here, and this is what it is limited to. And I'm happy to support them at that level. And I like a solid player, and I'm going to help you be a solid player at this level, but you're not going to be more than that. And that's okay. And I'm going to be humane about it. And I'm going to make sure that they're hitting their marks. Because again, I think that the bit we're missing as business leaders too often is that we have to understand the outside of work stuff. Is that what they want? Are they work to live or live to work kind of person? If they're a live to work, great, right? They're probably a top performer and knocking it out of the park just automatically. If they're a work to live performer, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. They can deliver value to your organization. It's just going to be a different value. And by the way, the comp also looks different based on that. That's my take. It's okay. So here we go, Aaron. You agree? You're trying to get the higher competency in Microsoft ecosystems. Yeah, I get it. And to a certain degree, you may end up just having to view this as an assignment that you're doing in your org that they are paid to do. Think about it from this perspective. You're saying, I want this competency because we need it to get to the higher level. Well, that's a business investment you're making. You're going to have to pay for it. You just are. Like, you're going to have to pay for it. You can pay for it by hiring new people, or you can pay for it by making the people you have meet the competency. It's not on them to do that, and that's just okay. Jason's offering to take a look at the book Drive by Daniel Pink. It's great. He's right. It's a great book. Another one to look at. I think you may just have to change the way that you're looking at it. You're gonna, if you want this for your business, looks like you got to pay for it. It sucks. I get it. Like, it's not, but that's the, if you look at it and say, this is the way we're going to make more money, these are the investments we want to do. I'll observe, if you were saying, I need to get to this and I'm going to buy some tool, you'd probably buy the tool. If I say, well, you're going to have to buy these people, you'd probably say, I buy the people. Well, now you're going to have to buy the people by training the people you've got. That's my answer. I hope that helps. All right. This one's a fun one. This is from a Patreon. What may break the cycle of add this new MRR tool and charge your clients more for it? Will the pendulum swing back towards simplification? No, but yes. So I'm going to laugh and go, this is one of those things that I just laugh about now that I'm doing what I'm doing. After spending 8 years selling tools to MSPs, now I look and I go, oh my God, there's so many tools. And so many of them are fine. They're just fine. I go, the reason I don't talk about, like, for example, RMM tools as much on my show is that they're all fine. When the investors call me and say, what do you think about the MSP market? I go, and the RMM market, I go, they're all fine. Just buy one. Or don't. I actually am okay with not buying one. And I have a whole strategy for building an MSP without one. And I get yelled at, I get yelled at all the time by, by MSPs for saying, you got to have an RMM, but I don't think you necessarily do. But I also think all the RMMs are fine. Too often MSPs are just chasing tools, and they think, Stuart, you're so right. MSPs do just love to buy tools. They totally love to buy tools. They're chasing the product solution to the actual people, like to people problems. So I actually don't think this will change. But what I'll observe is anytime I talk with higher performing organizations, they're spending very little time thinking about their tool set. They just don't spend their time there. And so it's almost like a barometer for me, or a gauge when I'm talking with somebody. If they immediately want to start talking to me about their toolkit and what they're using and the product line, I actually sort of know where they fit on the bell curve. I think about the bell curve of MSPs all the time. And what I mean by this is, so if we look at service leadership data or Forrester data or all of that kind of stuff, we know that there's a best-in-class group. Right? We talk all the time about the best-in-class group. They're amazing performers. We also know roughly 25% of the market is break-even or losing money. 25% of the market is break-even or losing money. So, like, I laugh and I go, like, I go on Reddit, right? 1 in 4 posts is by somebody not making any money. Broadly. Gross simplification, but kind of true, right? And so I always think about that, like, well, where do you fit on the curve? Where are you on the curve of MSPs and how you're making money? For me, I actually will tell you guys, I spend a lot of time thinking about the middle of the pack, and the reason is that for me, the top end, I assume, is generally smarter than I am. Why? Because they're, like, running really successful businesses. And I also know, I love talking to those guys, and I hope I deliver value, and I hope that they, like, listen to the pod and they make some money off of some of my crazy ideas, right? But I generally assume that they're smarter than me and just kicking ass and taking names. And I also know that there's a group that will ignore me and do what they're doing, because they don't care, right? Like, they're just doing. So I think about the group in the middle and I say, well, how can I help them? How can I give, like, good directional market driven analysis and say, like, this is what you can do. And so for me, it's like I can almost tell, like, which side of that on. Are they leaning towards being better if they're asking me, like, these good questions about the market or people management or that kind of stuff? Or are they like, well, what RMM should we use, or what is the RMM market going, or that kind of stuff. Like it's like, and so the question, what will break the cycle? Oh, nothing. Like, this is the thing. By the way, and if you look at the motivations, like, the vendors love this. They're completely happy with everybody spending a ton of time on products because they sell products. Like, there's an army of channel people flying around to talk to you about products. They want this. They love this. This is talking about their products. They are playing into this. I did it for 8 years. Great job. Pays really well. It's fun. You get to fly around, buy a bunch of beer. Like, it's really fun. But by the way, and I'm not meaning like this, they're genuine people that want to grow MSPs there. But by the way, that's good for the market. It's good for the buying market. They're financially motivated to sell more stuff. The only way that's going to break it ultimately is the MSPs decide they're not going to. So it's going to write that, like, higher performing MSPs put time in sales and marketing versus worrying about the tool of the day. So what's going to break it? I don't think anything's going to break it. I think MSPs self-select out of it. They just stop playing. And that's for me, the ones that I think are going to win ultimately, because they're spending much more time on that. So that's kind of my take. I have done a ton of questions. Cool. Anyway, please fire away. I got more time on these. I have burned through my chat questions as well as my Patreon questions, and I've got a couple other things to talk about if people are interested. So while you're queuing up your question, I'm going to do a little bit of I'm going to do 1 or 2 pieces of what I call stories that didn't make the show but could have, and we're gonna try the whole new streaming coolness and see what I can do from like a story perspective. All right, here we go. That's the one I want to do. I don't want to like kill you guys with massive bits. So I want to walk you through while I'm doing this, and again, keep up with the questions you want to do. I want to give you 2 or 3 stories that could have made the show and didn't, and I want to tell you like where my head's at on this. The first story that didn't was this: 58% of Americans have hybrid work options, but challenges remain. I talk about remote work a lot. I get it. I'm actually self-aware. And so I didn't include this because I dug into the McKinsey study already, but it was this kind of chart. And actually, I will go back to the bigger version of that as I learn my own. There we go, the bigger version of that. Because I thought this was sort of fascinating. That it's back to my subtleties of difference, right? Like the who has options to work remotely? Why do they have options to work remotely? I think there's mineable data here in terms of how to customize your approach to work based on your hiring strategy, who's available to you, the diversity makeup, that kind of stuff. I just felt like this was one of those pieces where in a way I almost couldn't do enough justice to the data on the show because I'm still figuring it out. I looked at this one and I said, yeah, this is just sort of super cool data. And I wish I almost had more time. I could probably do a whole piece on this data alone. This is the particular graphic that got my attention. I will actually, let's see where we go. I'm going to drop that into chat myself. Anybody who's on the chats that gets it can get it. This is one that I was thinking about and I thought was super cool, and was a story that didn't make the show and could have. All right, I'm going to switch over to questions here. Eric, how important do I think PX is the pendulum influence swings away from vendors to partner? And I'm going to assume PX is partner experience, by the way. I'm going to assume that. If I'm wrong, chat it, put it in chat so that I'm not misinterpreting our love of acronyms. So this is, I'm going to say, like, so I love listening to Jay McBain talk about ecosystems and the evolution of the channel. I love pontificating on that stuff. But in a way, it's just another version, right? Like, it's just another nomenclature for I am going to sell indirectly, and my group of people that I sell indirectly through is just named. All right, cool. Good assumption. I was right. I'm good at guessing. if you're a typical kind of vendor in the space and you're used to going through a channel and that's your partnership channel and you've been able to measure it for a long period of time, that's easy enough to do, right? Cool. In what we're moving toward is this ecosystem idea, which is the idea of like, well, hey, there's this whole larger sense of the buyer's journey that we aren't necessarily able to measure all the stuff of. And so we're going to have to try and expand out. And now we're going to call it ecosystem because it is way bigger than just the channel. So by the way, like in a classic kind of vendor hat, because you got to tie into motivations, right? So Dave Sobel and the Business of Tech and MSP Radio, we are part of the ecosystem of players that influence the way people buy. I think this has become more and more important, just simply to recognize that the buyer's journey is so different and that you don't get to control a lot of it. And I think for me, I've been thinking a lot about this from an MSP IT services company perspective. It's why like I'm super keen on e-commerce investments and doing much more digitally than I think most providers do. But I know, and you work for a vendor, so I'm going to also say like, so I get it from that end. I'm thinking about it from a solution provider perspective, MSP perspective, and I say I think they need to be doing a lot better job of broadening their education and reach. And particularly digitally. And I think that it's going to be important for that because that has swung away to partners and education. But the reason it's done that is because the buyer's journey is so different. And so you need to be spending a ton of time on like educational stuff in a broader way that is acquired when the buyer wants to, not when the seller controls it. And let me give you an example of this, and I'm going to make it very personal for myself. So I always like talking about financial motivations. The bulk of my revenue comes from ads from the vendors. I love working with vendors to deliver their message within good content. Like that's the basic idea of my business. But I freely admit, like I put out stuff. I have a whole series on my YouTube channel called What I Tell Investors. And I was actually literally talking about it this morning with somebody where I do some work with people on Wall Street that are looking to put money into the MSP space. And they call me and they want my opinion, right? And I do these calls and they will ask me a bunch of questions. And what I've actually ended up doing is putting a lot of the questions they ask me into videos that I put on YouTube. And you would think instinctually that, oh, well, you're giving that away, right? You would give away the same knowledge that they hire from me from a consulting perspective. What I've actually found is that I get hired more because they find me, they listen to my videos and they think there's more secrets. They think, oh, I got to understand more. I got to get more knowledge out of it. So they hire me. And I say the same things I said in the videos. Like I say exactly the same stuff. But they pay me for a one-on-one interaction because then it's, I guess, personalized. They find more value out of it. Cool. I don't really have to care, right? Because it drives the business for me. And I think it's the same for MSPs. Like I would sort of say, like, if you look at somebody like Tom Lawrence, right? Like Tom's doing gangbusters on YouTube. Because he's like giving it away. He's giving away all this knowledge. But lots of customers go and say, I don't want to have to pay for that. So that, you know, I don't want to do it. I want to pay for it. So I consider, you know, what I consider customer experience at the MSP side critical. Yeah, it's totally related. Like I want to make that interaction really awesome. So that's kind of where my it is. I'm giving away the secret. I just give away all my secrets now. Like I just completely give away all the secrets now. And I'm completely happy doing it because it's like way more fun. By the way, I want to share Ray was helping out Aaron on this. You know, he actually said, if you're assigning them time during work, it should be required, make it part of their career development. Growth here is not optional. I would agree with that. I think it's a good investment. And I want to continue to do that. So cool. Keep the questions coming. I'm going to get clever here with my screen sharing, and I'm going to share another of the stories that didn't make that I was thinking about and didn't make the show. So this one was kind of interesting to me. Let's add it to the stream. I'm a young streamer, everybody. So just a quick one. I didn't put it in the story because it kind of felt like it felt exactly the same as Zoom bets on corporate customers to stem their post-pandemic crash. Again, everybody knows I'm incredibly fascinated with the return to work stuff. I'm trying not to do too much of it, so I cut this story at the from my reads. But what really fascinated me was the fact that they were really just getting back to basics. They admitted when the pandemic hit us, they weren't ready. I thought that was kind of the key quote here. But what they're now doing is they're going back really to basics, and they're validating my basic theory of the value is in the work layer, and thus that's where they're going to spend a lot of their time. And so for me, it was just a bit of a validation. I might use it in my predictions stuff at the end of the year, because I figure out if I'm right or wrong from this year's predictions. I'm batting pretty strong this year, but that was one of the stories that didn't make the show, and I kind of thought could have. All right, a couple of other quick comments. Thank you, Kyle. CX is the only metrics that matters. I don't like absolutes ever, but I would agree with you. Like CX is super key, right? I think that's one of the ones that we have to get to. And then I want to say, Stuart, the more people who openly share win more in the end. We do that as well. Give away all the SEO secrets, find more MSPs to do the work. It's the same sort of validation of it. And this is where I don't think there's enough. I don't think there's enough good stuff on people's MSP websites. Like, this is one of the things I'm going to keep reinforcing for everybody. So I do the IT leadership diversity report every quarter. I think this is super important to measure something over time. I just released the last set of data. It's not good. Things are slightly getting more white in this in IT leadership, not better. It's getting slightly more female, but we're talking about like 0.5%. It's not getting better. The byproduct of that research is I also spend a lot of time looking at everybody's website. It's because in order to do the research, the methodology is we go to everybody's website and we count people. Like we just go through the website and we just count people and we classify them. And I know it's not perfect, but it's the best system I've got. But that also means I'm spending a lot of time on everybody's website, like looking around, making sure that I understand it. And so many MSP websites are just garbage. They're just so bad. If I want to interact with you, I'm offered one of two mechanisms. The first is a contact us form where I fill out a note and I wait to hear from you. That's the first way. And the second is I'm given a phone number and I can call you. And by the way, I know MSPs, if I do, a lot of them go to an automated messaging tree because they don't want to talk to people. I literally talk about this all the time, right? I can't. So if I'm a customer and I'm trying to understand what's going on, I get nothing, right? And by the way, there's this whole paranoia of I'm not going to put my prices out there. So I'm looking around and everybody kind of looks the same. Stuart who works in this space, MSP websites mirrors of each other. Yeah, like they're all freaking same. And so there's no way to tell like generally anything. Now there are a handful out there, 24/7 live site. Yeah, not necessarily saying that. I'm just observing there is no way to talk to anybody. And but there's also, if I'm, again, that buyer's journey we were talking about to Eric's question, if I'm trying to learn about you and your offerings, where's beyond the one video, right? So where's the video? You've got a video, right? That's usually this very simple 2-minute overview of of just your company. But I can't learn anything more about like example solutions or video case studies or walk through just sort of answers to my questions. Well, why would I want, why do I want these kinds of services, or what do we want? Talk about, and Ray's right. It's all just coming at it saying here's us. We're going to talk about us and how amazing we are. We're not going to talk about you, the customer, and your needs. And everybody's the same. And it doesn't let me explore. It doesn't let me educate myself and dig into it. I've made several videos on this, and I've gotten pushback on several, which is great. But what I walked through is I can go learn about buying a car or a house or insurance or go get a new bank. I literally just recently added a bank because I was exploring, and they offered a bunch of features that I was really interested in. and particularly around like international free withdrawals and going on vacation. And I was like, well, those are actually features I'm going to really use. I like that. And I signed up entirely online, like a new bank. I went all the way to like being their customer and moving in. And I've never stepped in a branch. I've never talked to anybody. I've bought insurance that way, like business insurance that way. I have explored cars that way, both business and personal. Like I've made big ticket items, but heaven forbid I buy managed services or any technical services this way. Okay, you're a special flower. I get it. So like it is, I just look at this and I say like, you're not doing enough on that. Anyway, rant over on that one. I had budget. I'm definitely going to be, I was planning on be here for a full hour. If people have questions, please throw them in. I've got another kind of story that did meet my criteria that I will do in these stories that didn't make the show. Let's go ahead and throw that one into. Again, I'll give you one more, and I'll give you sort of my reasoning on why I covered it. So I will tell everybody, particularly you guys showed up and you're interested in this kind of stuff. Like I struggle with the tools every so often because I get it. I really, I get fascinated by them too, and I want to talk about them a little bit. I am ever fascinated by Microsoft and Apple's moves on IT management because I just sort of see that rising tide of what they're doing. And so this one was one I spotted. I didn't do something, with because it was just one of those bits where it's like, okay, they've added a bunch more features, but I could say the same thing over again. It's another data of it, but in particular, they're allowing servicing profiles, delivering Word, Excel, other Office suites, and rolling it more into the way they're approaching Windows Patch Tuesday. I thought this was really clever. If I tie it in, this story dates into June. I'd been sitting on it for a little while because I thought it was good. If you tie it into the data that I talked about this week from reasons why customers leave MSPs, it tends to be around literal disruptions to their business, unexpected reboots, that kind of stuff. And I looked and I said, okay, that's a really cool thing. And if somebody actually was focusing on patching, like really aggressively, like this sort of bit here, I look and say, like, this is the underrated bit. I'm totally dismissive of RMM. Don't get me wrong. I think it's garbage. But I understand the problems they're trying to solve. Remember, I sold it for years. And if somebody built like an actual real, like just was really awesome at just patching, I think they do really well in the market. Why? Because this is like a real pain point. And if Microsoft really could do better with that, if Microsoft gets this right eventually, it's going to be a thing. All right, right. You're going to write best example of client or partner experience. Oh, I don't know. I actually am going to laugh and go, I don't have one. On the spot, I haven't done any prep and research for that one, so I don't have one. I particularly because, so let me observe that I haven't been a partner in a very long time. So I think it would be unfair of me to sort of walk through that scenario when I haven't done it in so long. And I'd actually sort of like, in a way, maybe we should do something to explore this, and do that. Let that bad. Yeah, it is. Clients, like I tell you, I don't get impressed by these MSP websites. Like Stuart's right. Like literally they all look the same. I can almost predict what's going to be on all of them, and I'm not finding anything. I'm going to give the props to Tom again, Tom Lawrence, and what he's doing over there on his social stuff, because it's just so good and customer focused. Like it's exactly that. So I don't have great ones. I wish I did. And if somebody wants to show off theirs and tell me theirs is better, please show it to me. Nate, all right, cool. Most MSPs are one-person shops, and how would you recommend they manage their communication with their client? Okay, I'm gonna say something that's really hard because I think you have to lean into your strength. If you're a one-person shop, you are a one-person shop, and you're gonna have to own that. And so I would sort of tell you, like, your key is to be personalized. Your key is to really personalize this. You're going to be tempted to lean into automation so heavily that it because you're going to think about that as growth, and they're not wrong. But what you're going to want to do here is really focus in, and thanks for hitting me up on both, by the way. What you're going to want to do is lean into the fact that you can be very personalized. I would encourage you to think how you're going to do things systematically over time, but I would lean into the fact that you can be personalized. So, for example, if you're a one-man shop, I would go the extra length and do a subtle thing like create a Google Voice number that you intend to be your business line, but for now points just to your cell phone. You're going to hide your cell phone, but you're going to teach them the number to call. Like, you're going to teach them from day one the number to call. And just over time, you will make it very personalized with people. But initially, it's just you. And so you're gonna lean into that. You're gonna use a ticketing system, but you're probably gonna lean into the fact that it make it feel very personal. Like, don't go so overboard on that. And you're gonna lean into talk a lot. Stuart's right. Like Arlen always says, there's not such a thing as over communication. You're gonna spend the time to do it, and you're going to use your own back-end systems but remove them from it. So for example, I would really encourage you to think like, I write a weekly newsletter for my customers, but I'm probably going to take the time to customize an intro and an outro and send 15 emails a week where I've customized it for each one to talk about what's going on with them, plus the stuff that I reuse. Like, and that's the way you're gonna think system, but you're gonna personalize everything and lean into what you would consider your weakness and make it your strength and differentiate there, just knowing your for the system. I think that's the one thing. And I've got a couple of people jumping in, on this as well. Eric's also jumping in saying CX starts with mapping your journey and whether you're a one man or a large MSP. He's right. So like, think about where you want to go, but then design for what you've got. Eric also wanted to talk. He had a discussion with Tom, and they drive a lot of MSP customer traffic from their YouTube channel. It's not surprising. Yeah, he drives tons of business that way. So that would be the way that I would think about it, Nate, is you really want to lean into that and position your customization and your personal touch as what you're able to deliver as a one-man shop. Just know you're building back-end systems to support that, but hide them from the customer as much as possible, because use them to make you better, not to put a barrier between you and your customer. And I think that's going to be the real trick there. This has been super fun, guys. Got a little bit more time for questions. As I said, I plan on being here for at least a full hour and go a little long too. Because you got my three stories that I was thinking about. While I will tell you, I will say again, I'm gonna quickly remind everybody, if you like what I do, if you're bad at what I did, if I didn't tell you, you can support directly at patreon.com/MSP radio. That's the way people support me directly. If you get access to videos early, you get access to, obviously, I got my Patreon submitted some questions, so they were able to get in. Nate, so you learned the lesson the hard way, right? You had 11 ways to contact us and you pre-train your clients. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that before. You're going to want to, that's my think systematically from early days. So, and again, if you are liking my stuff and you don't subscribe or listen on the regular channels just to get a sense of what I'm up to, you can catch the podcast daily. It drops at 5 p.m. Eastern every work day. Additionally, you get the weekly version of the show that comes out weekly. I release bonus content in both video and audio format. And now I'm trying my hand at live streaming. So, key statement there, automation is great until it creates a gap between you and the client. Thank you for reinforcing that one, Eric. All right. How to really avoid the temptation to look at tools to solve everything as an MSP. Recognize they are all garbage. They're all garbage. They're all shit. There's this want to assume the tools are amazing. I get it. Like, we're all in tech because we like gadgets. Literally, the guy who's got like crazy signage and collects old computers. I love this stuff. And no tools, no tools have ever completely solved it. Like there always is something to it. I think it's just mindset. Like I really think it is reinforcing that every single day. And I'll just, I'll get on my little soapbox for a second here and say, like, one of the reasons why I do what I do is I got tired of hearing how amazing everything was all the time. And I wanted to just have more realistic conversations. Like I think there's some really cool stuff out there, but I want to have conversations about the real problems we're facing, right? Because if I think about the real problems that you face as an MSP, and I stack rank them kind of, and I look at your P and I tie it to your P&L, the number one thing you spend money on as an MSP is labor. Like by far, like leaps and bounds, the number one thing that you spend money on is labor. And I don't understand why we're not spending so much more time on people, culture, investment there. And by the way, the problems that go around that, right? Like, because if I look at our actual problems, it's regulation, it's security, it's, it's the work layer stuff. Like it's all of that stuff, which are all people issues. They're all people issues. They're all stuff that are going to, the reason I like the work layer so much is because helping people be good at work is really hard. And so I look at that and I say, I like complex things. I make money in complex things. They're hard. So I'm going to make a lot of money there. And, as Nate observes, like don't overstack your stack. There's federal, like that's not the actual complexity. And Ray, you're right. You need some tools, but you're not out looking for new tools. What you're trying to do is to continue to solve problems. And most of us know that for the vast majority of the time, you're only using 20, 30, 40% of a toolkit that you already have. And so like, just don't spend so much time there. Don't think that the grass is greener by hopping somewhere else. It's actually about like making the ones you have better, or in a way, get rid of the complexity to go back to some sort of simple stuff. That's kind of the way the way that I'm thinking about it. I want to, Eric, thank you for giving the the plug. I just did Good, Better, Best, which I will say I worked really hard on that one. I was really proud of it. I have this model of analyzing of your investment with a customer, of good being you're attacking expenses because you need that. You're an expense. Better being you're focused on helping them in their cost of goods sold, and best that you're actually helping them with revenue. And it's a way of thinking about your services and the way that you engage your customer to link you to their profit and loss. And it gets you really deep into the way that you think with customer. I will say the community's been responding to it. I always know when like a piece takes off. And that's the one that I've been focused on. And I think it's been really helpful. And so for me, it's the way that I've been thinking about it and the way I've been trying to analyze toolkits. I will tell you that there's two areas that I'm super focused on for me understanding more on tools. The first is that I want to understand more about working in the work layer. I'm fascinated by Teams and Zoom and online collaboration and thinking about the way to make customers more effective with that stuff. And the other one that I will tell you, I'll give you guys the reveal on, the one area that I am fascinated on tools is the emerging cloud SaaS space. Because I do think like we have this proliferation of SaaS, and we're going to need a way to simplify that. And I think somebody's going to do something with it. I will tell you, I actually talk about my former employer briefly today on the podcast that will drop tonight, and it'll be in the video that comes out on Monday, because they did an acquisition recently, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe I need to take another look at that. I will tell you, my head is out there thinking on it. I don't actually understand the space enough from a requirements perspective, and I'm thinking on it to try and understand the requirements better before I come out and comment. So that's kind of just wander off on a topic there. Nate, I recommend any MSP go read. So you want to be an MSP. Cool. He talks about the labor topic. That is very, very cool. I've done a couple of pieces on that, and so I'm going to actually have to dig into that myself. And by the way, don't forget, MSP vendors are some of the most successful MSPs out there. They survive by selling to you. Yes, 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 yes. Remember, financial motivations. I mean that in a neutral positioning. Like, I'm not trying to say financial motivation is bad. We run businesses to generate profit. Like, it is not a bad thing. You want to understand how people make money. Vendors make money by selling you stuff. They will always tell you that there's a tool to do it because they make money by selling you stuff. I make money by capturing your attention. If I say things that are useful to you and you repeat, I can deliver vendor ads next to that content. That's how I make money. I'm open about it because I want you to understand the way that I think about the business and the way that I'm motivated. And I want you to then examine the other things around you, the people that are selling to you, and understand their motivations. And by the way, then we can do a whole rant on P and all that, like the way they're making money and the way they've optimized. That's another whole topic, I think. And I don't think we will tackle that necessarily today. But the reason I talk about financial motivations is exactly that. They survive by selling to you. That's not a bad thing. That is what they are. It is not a good or a bad. It's just something we need to recognize. Cool. Well, this is super fun. Time for one or two more questions. How about like that? How about we'll target doing the full hour today on this. Is this worth it? Like, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do and how often I should do this, but this has been super fun, and I am very interested in doing live stuff on occasion if it is helpful to the community. I'll be a bad plugger for a moment. Say, like, remember to support the side. Those like and subscribes matter. I would be a horrible YouTuber streamer if I did not remind you to do those things. It actually helps. It is the metric that I drive to help grow my own business, and I really do appreciate it. So you can help me directly from that kind of stuff. All right. Can I talk for growing one MSP in terms of getting employees versus subcontractors and smart hands services like Field Nation? Sure. So from my perspective, right, and again, to give you my thinking on the way this works, I don't care if you use subs, smart hands, or employees. Actually, for me, I think a one-person MSP's job is to find as many ways to maximize their time on the things they can do. So if you're a one-person MSP, if you're a one-person business owner, your mission in life is to maximize your investment of time so that you're doing the things only you can do. So you're going to be looking at all the tasks on your task list and get as many of them off your plate as possible of the things that you can't. So I'll use myself as an example in this case. I use 2 different subcontractors to help out with some of the video production stuff. I did it myself to start. I still do all the audio production daily myself because of time. I can't get someone else to do it as fast to hit my release deadlines, but on the video side, I can. I also leverage marketing so that marketing resources so that I can drive awareness because they can do that better, faster than I can. So the way for an MSP is you're going to think about it. Some of the things you can outsource are bookkeeping, administrative, booking. I think you can do those, but the 2 major things you probably are doing as a one-man MSP is selling and doing the technical work. But portions of the technical work you can hand off. The difference between using subcontractors and smart hand services helps you even out your engagement, because an employee is a big commitment, and you need to know you've got enough to do that right in order to keep them around, versus subcontractors and smart hand services are much more flexible and scalable. So you've got the ability to be much more flexible there. Use the ones that make sense. I hope that helps, because that's the way that I think about it. All right, Sean, you've asked a super fun question. What are the PCs on my desk? All right, cool. I get to do the fun ones. So on this side, this is a Commodore 64, the original breadbox version of the computer. That is the original monitor from the computer, the Commodore 64 that my parents got for me when I was 5. I don't have the original 64 breadbox. I have my original 128D upgrade unit that's in a box in storage. And this side is the Apple IIgs. It is not an original from when I was growing up, but both of these work, by the way. The IIgs is what the computer lab in my high school was loaded with. And that was the computer I learned to program Pascal on, which was the first major programming language beyond BASIC on the 64 that I'd learned. Of course, I moved on to C and C++ in college, but those were the sort of the two first computers. So yeah, of the VIC-20. I did not have a VIC-20. I had a friend who had a VIC-20. And so like for me, those are sort of like pivotal early pieces for me. I had never gotten rid of that stuff. And so in the past sort of, I want to say 8 or 9 years, I'd actually gotten back into retro computing, but more importantly, retro video gaming. I'm wearing my retro video game shirt today. And so I started collecting that kind of stuff again. And like through this whole wall, and I'm not set up for dual camera right this particular second, but I've got a whole wall of retro video game systems that'll work. Like that side is a classic Vectrex. That's a Nintendo Power Glove, and everything in my collection works. I actually have it all either restored or I've bought it in working condition and upgraded it. So that's kind of that's for me, like that's the collection of geek stuff that's in my office. Thanks to my wife who helped with the studio layout, because I went entirely with like, I'm going to go with all the fun things that are like my history and my likes and stuff like that. Cause from video games of all eras. And so arrogantly, the first PC was a Coco with 4K and a cassette drive, learned assembly language. Yeah. I that old stuff is so much fun. So anyway, so that's my bit. I have a bit of a retro video game, investment and collection. Nothing massive. I'm not some crazy collector on that. Like I haven't gone to the ends of the earth, and I have sort of limits on what I'll spend. But that's stuff that I have, and it all still works. Well, this has been super fun. Yep, I made my name in supporting Apple. Do I see the opportunity for MSP to focus on the Apple, but also Linux? Good question. So yes, I do. I can, so I'm, by the way, bias. I'm a Mac user. I've been a Mac user for, 15 years now, long time. When they went to Intel, I switched. So I've been a Mac user since the early Intel Macs. And so, and I'm forever sort of fascinated by the lack of attention that most MSPs do to the Mac, and how I think that there's an actual space there. Let me observe that those that buy Macs are spending a premium on equipment, and too many MSPs immediately go, "Oh, that's wasted money." You can do. These are people spending extra money on computers, and you're saying that's not valuable? This is the same group of people that are complaining they don't spend money on technology. They've identified that they are self-selecting to spend more money on computers. I like them as customers. I just laugh and go, like, literally, they're like they're people with more money that are saying they want a better thing. Okay, so the rant on that over. Do I think there's a space to focus on it? Yes, but I wouldn't do it. So here's my thinking. I think there's totally a space there. I think Apple has got lots of opportunity to build a business around that. But I actually, my overriding theme though is I think endpoints are being devalued, and I don't care what the endpoint is, and I want to play in the work layer. I want to play in your cloud systems. I want to be maintaining your M365 or Google Workplace, or help you be better with Teams and collaboration and all of that kind of stuff. And the endpoint doesn't matter as much to me. Now, ancillary to that, yeah, I think you need to do some of that kind of stuff. And I think embracing Apple users is a really good thing. But I would also consider, like I'm comfortable with Chromebooks too. I think Chromebooks is a great solution for a ton of people. And I, and I also look and say, like, iPads. I think that's an amazing thing. Eric's like, this is my version of the same story. The first pulled in an exec meeting at GFI. They asked me if we should support Mac. Look around the room. How many Macs are there? 10 out of 12. Who makes the buying decisions? They do. And we're not doing a good enough job with it. I like these. These are the people that are spending all the money. So do I like this space? Yeah, totally. But what I also want to focus on is the goal is to get off worrying about endpoints and thinking about their work system in the cloud, and making that the value there. That's the really big. You're right. You love Chromebooks too. Like, I think that's the value. Focus on that's your guiding light. Your guiding light is the cloud stuff, and the decisions flow from that. Now, do I think Mac users like are a good portion of that, and are they the high paying versions of it? Yeah, totally. But your question was the, like, do you focus there? No, you focus on the cloud layer, and the decisions flow from there. Once you go Mac, you never go back. Well, that's kind of true. And I'm glad I helped. Thank you on that one. All right, this has been super fun, everybody. I am going to take a break, grab some lunch, and I am going to gear up for a podcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. If this has been valuable, it sounds like this has been valuable. I will do these periodically. I don't know exactly when. If you've got ideas for times and days at work, let me know. I don't want to abuse my attention and do too many of these, but it has been super fun. I really appreciate everybody's attention, and I will talk to you all again soon.